Welcome to week 8 on Nadine's family wellbeing journey. Tracy and I are going to have a quick catch up, and today I believe I'm going to find out my ACE score. Hi Tracy.
Hi Nadine, yep, definitely. I promised that we would do the actual ACE score, and today is the day. So how are you feeling?
Nervous but excited, but I am nervous.
Yeah, brilliant. And before we start, can I just ask how your week's been? How's the wellbeing going with the new lockdown and everything?
Yeah, it's going all right. I mean, lockdown again, and I'm in the vulnerability category, so they've asked me not to go shopping and stuff like that. So I'm not leaving the house again, but I'm trying not to binge on Netflix like I did last time. I'm putting the playfulness in with Zach. Actually, he's off school as well at the moment, which makes it easier for me not to binge watch TV because it's given me more of a reason to kind of spend more time with him opposed to just sitting and watching TV.
That's good.
But yeah, it's now the second lockdown. But I feel more confident with the second lockdown because we've been there before, we've done it before. I feel I'm ready this time. I'm more ready.
Yeah, that's it. And we know that we've done it before, so we can do it again. You know, it's not great, but actually it's doable, isn't it? And hopefully, like you say, you've got some of those strategies now, and that self-awareness, which is so important, isn't it? Recognizing, oh, hang on a minute, I'm taking myself down this road of overeating or binge watching, and it's just catching yourself when you're starting to feel like that and thinking, right, I need to get in some well-being and start doing some strategies.
Yeah, and I do go back to the videos as well because sometimes I have the odd time where I would forget certain things, think, right, I need to rewatch that video and remind myself of how I've been successful so far on the journey. And the journey's helped me in so many ways that I kind of feel I can't wait to help other parents out there as well. So I'm quite excited on that.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel exactly the same. You know, I use these wellbeing strategies myself, and they're so helpful. And it's tough, isn't it, out there? And the more we can encourage one another and help one another on the journey, the better, really. So today we're going to look at the ACE score because that's something that we said we would do, but we would just put in that disclaimer again. You know, if you're in a good place today, but there might be people watching it who aren't, who are struggling because the weather's rubbish and they're just having an off day. And you know what, we're all human. So if you're having an off day and you're not feeling great, today is not the day to think about what your ACE score is. There's no rush on this wellbeing journey because it's going to take as long as it takes. And part of it is enjoying the journey and, taking the time really to get ourselves in a good place and build up our relationship with our children. So there is no rush, and if today isn't the day, then just come back to this video in a few weeks' time. It's not going anywhere. So that's what I would encourage people. So to put it into context, to kind of explain the actual ACE score, this is based on the original ACE study that was done between 1995 and 1997 by Andrew and Valetti, who did this huge study to understand a bit more about the link between childhood adversity, difficult things that happen to us when we're children, and the effects of that on us as adults, on our physical health, our mental health, or just our overall well-being. So it was a huge study with about 17,500 people, and it was really comprehensive. And the way that they brought together all the data was to have 10 key areas that they looked at. So those are the 10 key areas we're going to look at. And what they did is they said for each of these areas that relate to you, you count 1 point. And at the end of the 10 questions, you will then have a score out of 10 from 0 to 10. And that's what's called your ACE score. So it's not how many times a particular thing happened, it's how many of the categories that your situation fitted into. So that's how they work out the ACE score, and then that's how from there they made the link to these health and wellbeing outcomes that they came to. So a couple of things there. Obviously, one, it's a study that had to be limited at some point, so the 10 areas don't cover everything. So there may be areas that have affected your well-being that weren't on that list, and that doesn't mean they're not relevant. It just means for that particular scoring, it didn't fit in. So don't worry if you've got areas that don't fit into that, we'll come to that at the end. And the other thing to say is that how they found the link is they looked at the different areas of need, the different areas that people have been affected, and then they looked at the health outcomes if you hadn't had any protective factors. Now, a lot of us will have had protective factors, so just to say that you've got an ACE score of 5 or 6 or 7 doesn't mean that you're going to have these negative health outcomes, because actually if you've got protective factors, if you've got support around you, then actually you can change the story. It doesn't need to play out like that. They just found that those people who didn't have any support, who didn't have protective factors, that was what was likely to happen. And the whole reason we're doing this wellbeing journey is to put protective factors in for people so that we can change some outcomes and we can prevent our children having ACEs, even if we've had ACEs ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Good, brilliant. Okay, what we'll do, we'll go through the questions, and all you need to do is, have you got a pen and paper there?
Yes.
Yep. All you need to do is just jot down a point for each one of these that you relate to.
Okay.
So there was 10 areas, like I said, and the first one is when you were growing up. So all of these are before the age of 18. Did you experience emotional abuse? And that could include things like being sworn at, insulted, being put down or embarrassed or humiliated, or being frightened for your safety. That would be the first one. The second one is, did you experience any physical abuse? So that could include being pushed, grabbed roughly, being slapped or hit, any kind of physical abuse growing up. The third question asks about whether or not you experienced any form of sexual abuse. Fourth question, did you experience emotional neglect growing up? So that would also include if you were feeling unloved or not emotionally close to your family. So your family might all love one another, but actually sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect emotionally. You don't always feel loved or important. Did you experience physical neglect? And this is different to the physical abuse. It's about whether or not you had enough food to eat. Did you have clean clothes? Did you get medical attention if you were poorly? Did your parents take you to the doctors? Or perhaps they weren't able to because of their own needs and issues that they had. So did you experience physical neglect? Then we look at if when you were growing up, if you witnessed a parent or a sibling being treated violently. The next question is, did you lose a parent due to separation or divorce? Did you live with someone who abused drugs or alcohol? And that can include prescription drugs as well. Did you live with someone who was mentally ill? And that can include depression and different mental health disorders. And lastly, did you have growing up a member of your household who was in prison? So those are the 10 areas that the original study looked at. How did you get on with scoring those?
Mine was 4.
Is that higher or lower than what you thought it was going to be?
A little higher, but not bad. I mean, when you're reading those questions out, my ACE score doesn't seem as bad as what others may be and what they've suffered, if that makes sense. I mean, I know I've suffered in a different way, but looking
Yeah.
at my ACE score, I kind of think actually that's an average type score, really, for me, compared
Yeah.
to others. So,
And can we just take a little moment just for you to think about your experiences growing up, and would there be anything that impacted on you negatively that isn't on that original list? Because remember, we want your ACE score to really reflect your experiences. So for example, there's categories like bullying, or racism or discrimination. There's certain categories that aren't on that original list because, like I said, they had to limit it down to 10. It could be that you were physically unwell as a child and you were in hospital. Any specific areas that you know yourself spring to mind and you think, yeah, that had a real impact on me growing up? And just jot them down too.
okay. Okay, I've got a couple.
Yeah.
So bullying was one for me at school, but I kind of outgrew it when I went to college. I didn't become a bully. I was more, I put up a fight a bit better, so people knew that
Yeah.
not to mess with me because I've already been through that being bullied before. So I was like, I had
Yeah.
this like self-awareness of, I'm not going to be bullied again. I'm going to have
Yeah.
this thing. So I was more approachable. People were, not scared of me, but they wanted to be my friend. So I learned from that. Illness
Yeah.
didn't come till a bit later, but I was diagnosed quite young with cancer. I don't know if this is anything, but body image and my weight and body image, being young, a lot of my same school years had um, more curves, they had boobs, and whereas myself I was very late bloomer. So changing in the school change rooms, for example, where people were wearing bras, I was more vest tops kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that was something that was really hard for me because
Yeah.
I remember it a lot of being mocked a lot, and it was hard.
Yeah, those things have a huge impact, don't they? Especially when we're young and we're just working out who we are and what our identity is and where we fit in the world, and we're so self-conscious anyway at that age, aren't we? So it does have such a big impact, and that's what we're saying. So when you look at your score, those bits, they had an impact, so you mark that down as a point for you because it was huge for you. So whereas another person, it might not have had such an impact, but something else happened in their life that did. So these scores are really personal to each of us and our story. And it's not the score in itself that's, it's not the be all and end all. It's actually thinking about our experiences and how much of an impact they had on how we see ourselves, how we see the world around us, how it just how we've been affected, really. And what we're going to do is we're going to upload onto the Facebook page some of the things that tend to follow on from experience and a high number of ACEs like you have. So there's a little list for you to look at, and hopefully people will find it helpful and think, yeah, actually that did impact on my self-esteem or how I viewed the world. And all of those things then impact on our parenting. If we've grown up with a high level of ACEs and we're very critical of ourselves, then we're going to judge ourselves more harshly as a parent, and then we're going to struggle with our parenting because we're never going to feel good enough and we're not going to enjoy it as much. So understanding our ACEs, the ACE score is part of it, but it's more important to just understand your journey and how you've reached where you are today and how you feel about yourself and how you experience life, because then we can look at, okay, what what can we do about that? How do we, build up our resilience? How do we tackle some of these bits? And that's really what the main part of this journey is about.
Okay. I mean, one question you asked was about not being loved by a family member. I mean, I was loved dearly by my mum and dad, but I was adopted by my dad. So I grew up from very young of not knowing my biological dad. And when we did finally meet, there was not really, we're not in touch now. He's not someone who wants me to be part of his life. So that's still an ongoing ACEs for me at the moment.
That's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've connected with other parts of the family and we welcomed them with open arms. But my side of the story is still left. But I mean, I've got an amazing family and I couldn't think of a better father to bring me up. But it's still something that it still crosses my mind that person doesn't want me, kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely it does. And then that's so difficult, isn't it? And like you say, you're aware of all the positives and how loved you are and what a wonderful family you've got around you. But there's always going to be that little bit in the background of that sense of hurt and those bits. And it's really important not to minimize those, but to recognize that they're there and just to kind of make peace with them. That's a real big part of our well-being, isn't it? And when we look at ACEs, we aren't just, as you've shown, we're not just talking about things that happened when we were growing up. Those things still impact on us today. And we think back to that video we watched on toxic stress. Actually, we still, as adults, those things do still have an impact. Family dynamics are still what they are, and some of these hurts still carry on. And they do cause us a level of stress in adulthood. So we're not just looking at that happened then, we're looking at, okay, how has that evolved? How is that still impacting? How is that generally impacting on how I see myself, how I feel? Because if there's a little part of us that feels that we don't really fit, or we don't really belong, or those feelings which a lot of us have because of our ACEs, then that's going to impact on how well we can connect with our children. And more than anything, that's what we want, to have that positive connection with our children, don't we? Mm-hmm. So it's so important to look at, okay, where are the bits where I'm struggling myself and how can I get support with that? That self-awareness is such an important part of the journey. And for those people watching this video now and who are going to go on to do their own ACE score on the React to video that we're going to look at, and they'll get a chance to do it for themselves, it's important to recognise the important bit of being self-aware at this stage. And you might come away from that thinking, oh wow, that's a bit intense and I feel rubbish. Self-aware is the first stage of the journey, so be proud of yourself that you've taken that first step. Don't be discouraged because of how you feel. Be proud of yourself that you've made that first step, and then we're moving forward from here, and we're all in it together. We're all on the journey together. We're gonna have that moment of awareness, and we're gonna think things through and get support in how we feel about what we've thought about going through our ACE score, and then we're going to work through it. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I just really encourage people to see that self-awareness stage, which can be quite hard going, as actually this is a positive first step.
Okay, no, thank you, Tracy, that's really helpful, and I look forward to doing the React video and then chatting to you next week.
Yeah, definitely. And we would love to hear how people find the React to, wouldn't we, and yes, what their ACE scores are. Nobody has to give any details, but if they just want to share what their score is, and and if they want to touch base and get some support, then please, we really want people to do that, don't we? And that, we'd like to make sure that people feel encouraged at this time as they do their ACE score.
Yes, let's go on to their journey. So I've learnt my journey, let's help their journey now.
Yeah, definitely. Let's continue on it together. Yeah. Brilliant.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Nadine. Take care.
Speak next week.
Yeah, see you then. Bye.
Bye.